what might be coming in the mail. The little magic treat that I can't have until the end of my menopause diet. Newman. We got the Joe's Motor Pool engine insulators or engine mount kit.
As good as the day they made it 80 years ago.
Welcome back to ShopTime. Patrick Tipton here. Hey, stick around to the end of the episode. We had a big reveal. I found something really cool to show. So it is easy to imagine with a rolling driving chassis and now a tub that is mounted onto Murph that we would be on the road very soon. And yet, as we say in the aviation business, 90% done, 90% to go. Case in point, look at that glove box door with the nice refurbished original glove box door latch. Picked it up at the show last weekend, but it still took me 30 minutes to clean it up, get it all working again. Then you got to paint it, and on and on and on and on. It's what takes so much time. Since Murph was going to be a 10-day wonder, I did not have the luxury of doing anything but buying the parts that I needed and replacements because it just takes too much time to scrounge and repair old parts. Well, obviously that got us as far as a running chassis, but it didn't get me all the way through the tub, and so I resorted to my old ways of scrounging and buying used and anything else I could find rather than buying a bunch of the small parts that I needed to finish the Jeep. So case in point, you see me working on light brackets. These are the headlight bucket brackets, which are a cool design. They're hinged so that you can actually raise the headlights from aiming forward, turn them around backwards, and have them aim at the engine compartment so that you can work on the engine. Now, they're a cool design, but there's a hinge there. There's no provision for any grease or oil on the hinge, so they rust over 80 years for sure. Somebody tries to move them and manhandles them rather than heating them up and getting them free, and then they end up breaking them. So it's relatively easy to find damaged ones, and I think most people don't want to take the time to fix them. But, well, I already have a problem, and we've established that, so I fixed them. So you pick a few of the best ones and you start repairing and flattening and hammering and trying to make the pits go away. And to be honest with you, this is probably my favorite part of the restoration. It's all this little detail work. And it's work where after an hour's worth of hammering, dolly, and sanding and priming and painting, you really get the satisfaction of seeing that, all your hard work is coming to fruition, and you start mounting these things on grills and putting light buckets on them and everything else, and you kind of start believing that you might end up with a World War II Jeep at the end of it. So I had a couple of really nice headlight buckets that Pat started cleaning. I finished sandblasting them, got them all ready, but it turns out that they had been modified to accept 12-volt sealed headlight bulbs, and so I had to bend some metal back in place and TIG back the cuts that had been made. And again, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, but I guess my OCD kicks in and I won't sleep well at night if I know that those modifications had been made, so I fixed them back up. I know, I got a problem. So I always love to share little tips and tricks that I've learned along the way. So that sparking that you see is from TIG welding, is from the metal not being 100% clean. So that is catching fire, and the reason it is because those things were dipped, actually, the headlight buckets, and there's paint on the back side that I can't really remove, or at least not easily. So you just put the TIG welder on there, and I kind of let it run for a second at low amperage. It heats things up and kind of burns that stuff off. And now at this point it's obviously clean, so you don't see any sparking, but you should see no sparking when everything is working correctly on TIG. So obviously there I found some more. So you, again, after 80 years, most of these things have a little dent or a bump here or there. Somebody dropped a screwdriver and put a dent in it, and again, it doesn't take a lot of effort to get them back out. So I just keep going until I get them to the point where they look brand new again. You see me using my leg as a backer there. It works just fine. I obviously have the lead shot bag up on top. It's a very small little dent, and you just tap it out a little bit, and then even coming back on the other side to planish some of those back down where I got a few little bumps is fine, and it comes out looking like new. You see, it was a nice and rainy day outside, so I had all kinds of things I wanted to get done, but I ended up cleaning up all these parts and getting the headlight buckets all ready to reinstall. Grabbed a couple of other parts that needed to be touched up and painted, including the glove box door, and I moved my little trapeze inside, put the fan on so it was blowing past me, which was too strong, and it kind of made it hard for me to paint. But anyway, got them primed, got them painted, got some parts ready to be reinstalled, just one step closer.
Doesn't have a choke.
What kind of motors it got in it?
Angler, Ford, British Ford.
You should know better than putting any British Ford engine in it.
It's got to warm up, but when it's not warm, it's a pain in the butt.
So we were at the Red Ball Military Show in Gilbert, PA this weekend, and my friend Rick Wark from the Military Technology Museum of New Jersey brought this amazing Ford. They're calling it the Ford Junior. It is a one of one, in other words, a prototype that was built in 1943 to be an airborne capable Jeep, so they could put it into airplanes a little easier than the standard Jeep. And it ended up coming in overweight, so Ford didn't even submit it for consideration, and the program ultimately got dropped. But this Jeep stayed with Ford from 1943 into the 60s, when one of the gentlemen who had worked on the design ended up retiring, and I managed to talk Ford into selling it to him. It stayed with him from the 60s until recently, where the museum was able to buy it. It's just an amazing, cool piece of history. We'll do a whole feature on it at some point. Come on now, you're not that old. The Red Ball Show is at the end of September in Gilbert, PA every year, and never disappoints. One of the better shows in the country, certainly on the East Coast. This is Charlie Schoppel's M116 Husky, which is kind of a great-grandson to the Studebaker Weasel that we all know so well. Bigger vehicle, really cool. Lots of vehicles showed up, including Charlie brought several. He brought some Weasels. He brought this M116. I'll show you a couple of his other ones. This is another buddy's CCKW. John Headley bought this. It's a Norwegian return. Beautiful example. Closed cab, which you don't see as often, with a nice gun ring and a 50 cal on the top. Cool piece. And who doesn't love a nice Ford GPW all dolled up? This is Stan Schoppel's GPW that he restored. It was the first military vehicle that he had ever purchased, and it's a beaut. He's got it all dolled up with some barbed wire in the front and a tow rope and a wire catcher to prevent himself from getting hurt when he's driving in the back roads of Pennsylvania, because, I don't know, rumor has it John Fetterman's setting up tripwires, but what do I know? This is Charlie Schoppel's 4T10 made by Thiokol, and you can see it's painted up in U.S. Air Force livery. That's where it went to serve, and it was used primarily in a search and rescue operation. It's another kind of great-great-grandson of the Weasel, 60s era with a Ford motor in it, and yeah, nice, beautiful inside. A little more advanced than a Weasel. Again, a little easier. The tracks are probably a little simpler to manufacture and more robust design than the Weasel, and it uses tires for kind of bogies. It's a neat machine. Charlie did a beautiful job restoring it, and it's all aluminum too, which is nice from a rot perspective for sure. See that? It says RL31E, not World War II, but this is the reel that goes in the back of Murph, folks. Super excited. We'll get the feet mounted. You see those that go in the little brackets that we found. This is a brake. We'll show you more once we get it installed next week. Guys, how about that RL31? It's super cool, isn't it? So the quick story is, show up at Red Ball. Dennis comes up to me and says, hey, there's an RL31 in the corner. I hustle over there. The guy's nowhere to be found, but sure enough, there's an RL31. We find the data tag. It's an E model, which is later. C, I think, is World War II, B and C. But who cares? Good enough for us. And so anyway, I went back a couple times, couldn't find the guy. Eventually found him and bought it and brought it back over. And a bunch of people came up to me. I wanted to buy that. I couldn't find the guys. And me neither. But anyway, I got it. So it was destined to be on Murph, which makes Murph destined to be a Signal Corps Jeep, which is just too cool. And I'm going to tell you more about the 294th Joint Assault Signal Company. Very cool history. That's coming up. I'm doing more research on it. But we're going to get this bad boy marked up. So again, things progressing along. It's slow going. And you know, the grill looks great. All those parts that we got finished, you know, I worked on some of them. Dennis worked on some. Pat worked on some. Matt worked on some. We're just moving parts along. And really, the tub, I need to do a little more fettling. I'm still hammering some things out a little bit. I found a hole or two. I'm just fixing stuff. It's not that hard to do right now. And I'm going to blow one more coat of OD all around the outside here, hopefully this weekend. And at that point, grab handles go on. You know, a lot of parts start going on. I'm not going to put any seats in it yet or the gas tank because I want to get the wiring harness in, and it's much easier to do laying down in there. So I'll get that done, I hope, this weekend, if I could get the wiring harness in primarily and get all the instruments back in on the dash, and we'd be in pretty slick shape at that point. And hopefully we'll be driving this thing in a couple weeks. So anyway, as always, thank you so much for supporting the channel. Really appreciate it. And keep those corners square. Patrick Tipton. I will see you guys again next week.